Now, this week in Wonder the World, we're not only traveling in kilometers, we're also traveling back in time, way, way back in time, because we are taking you on a visit to the West Coast Fossil Park to look at South Africa through a different lens, the lens of what it looked like millions of years ago. The park is located about 90 minutes drive from the city, up the west coast, of course, and it is home to one of the world's richest fossil deposits. The remains of animals have been found there, which roamed this region 5 million years ago, and they include everything from giant, short-necked giraffes to saber-toothed cats to the ancestors of modern elephants and hippos. This park offers a rare chance to step into an ancient landscape and contemplate the remains of the past and think about how dramatically our environment has shifted over the millennia. Now, to guide us through this fascinating window into the past, it's a great pleasure to have with us via Zoom Pippa Haarhof, who is manager of the West Coast Fossil Park. And Pippa, it's great to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thanks so much. It's a wonderful to have this opportunity. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Our great pleasure to have you with us, and thanks for opening our eyes to this. I have to start by saying, unfortunately, I have never visited the park, so I am coming to this as a first-time visitor, just like many listeners will be. Pippa, what makes the West Coast Fossil Park such a unique and important site? Can we talk about the sort of geographical and historical context before we talk about what is there today?
Yes, so it is one of the richest fossil sites of this age. You mentioned it, average age of 5 million years in the world. So it's one of the richest fossil sites in the world for that age. And what it has that is really advantageous is that it's very accessible to the public, by the public. Because, it's only 120 kilometers from Cape Town. And also, very importantly, it's part of the school curriculum. So we present activities that, that help teachers what they would normally teach in the classroom, bring their children to see the real thing. Because what we did when we opened the park in 1998, we left the big bones. You mentioned the animal, the giant, it's a short-necked, long-horned giraffe called a civethair, and it's got huge bones, and we left those bones in the ground in the particular dig site that we opened up then, specifically for our visitors to see the bones in the ground exactly as they were buried 5 million years ago. So, there are not many places you can go to see that.
It's an absolutely remarkable opportunity. And as you say, just on our doorstep outside of Cape Town. What fascinates me so about your story is how these fossils were discovered, because I understand that, in fact, this entire discovery and the site and the existence today of the fossil park owes its existence to mining activity as far back as the 1950s. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. So they started mining actually in 1942, around about that time, for phosphate, which has multiple uses, but the primary use is for fertilizer. And I think in the beginning, fossils were found, but they weren't brought to the notice of any researchers.
Okay.
So the first scientific paper was only published in 1958. But thereafter, well over 100, probably close to 200 publications now from people from different parts of the world, because it's such a rich site. There's so many different animals, and we tend to specialize when we do our research. So you'll get bird specialists, mammal specialists, and so on. And it's a fairly small global community, and we get to know who's an expert in which field within paleontology. And so we end up working with people from all over the world. So it's a favored site because the fossils are so well preserved.
Right.
And although a lot were destroyed due to the mining process, had it not been for the mine, we think the site wouldn't have been discovered, because the bulk of the fossils are buried, 10, 15, 20 meters below the surface. Although we do have an archaeological site right on the surface, dating back to 700,000 years or so, documenting the early ancestors of the San in this area. So yeah, it's a fascinating piece of ground that fortuitously has been opened up, and it's really opened up a window, if you like, into the past.
So much to follow up on here. I mean, what I'm hearing from you is, besides the visitor experience and the educational opportunities for teachers to bring school children through, this is still an active dig site where research continues and exploration of fossil sites continues. At any given time, if one comes to visit, are you likely to see a team in action, or is it only every so often? How regularly are there teams actually digging on site?
Yeah, not very regularly at currently.
Okay.
For various reasons. But the plan eventually, hopefully, is to establish some kind of a research institute here, multidisciplinary research institute, based on, this is a dream of mine actually, but whether I'll be around to see it happen, I don't know. Because I talk about the origin and evolution of the Berg River, which, because that Berg River, we think, based on Brett Hendy's research, used to flow through this area 5 million years ago.
Gosh.
And the sea levels have changed, gone up and down over time. And the Berg River, we think, is at least 120 million years old. So that to unpack that, the origin and evolution of the Berg River from bedrock to present, would be a magnificent multinational, multidisciplinary research project to hang, lots of different research questions onto. So we're not digging. There's a SARA regulation that you have to leave 50% untouched.
Okay.
And our current dig site is protected by a temporary structure, and we've dug as much as we're allowed to under that particular structure. Okay. But last year, one of our staff members who works in the collecting wood as well, Roy Krantz in the field here, he came across some fossil rhino bones.
Oh wow.
Pretty much on the surface, and is in quite a different spot from where our current dig site is. So that's the next area that we're going to explore.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting. Hopefully, I don't think it'll be early next year. Hopefully, with Professor Roger Smith, who's a colleague of ours from Uziko, and he heads up our excavations in the fossil park, because you must remember a lot of the research gets done on the collections, and the collection is housed at the museum in Cape Town, Uziko, and so a lot of our visiting researchers and anybody who's doing research on these fossils takes place there on the collections. So because lots of different questions are asked. Not only what animal are you looking at, that's the primary research question. You want to identify who's who in your zoo before you can build up a detailed picture of what life was like here. So, but then really very, very interesting research builds up on that basic information, the taxonomic information.
Right.
Because you want to know, for instance, we've got 3 different species of elephant that coexisted here.
Goodness.
And, first a question would be, how on earth could the environment support 3 different species of elephant at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a fascinating bit of evidence regarding the vegetation, what it used to be like here 5 million years ago, comes from the tiniest part of the plant that can fossilize, and that is the pollen grains, that are microscopic. They can preserve extremely well under the right conditions, and we have clever palynologists who can study them and identify them.
Mm.
And so based on the fossil pollens, it has been deduced that the climate and vegetation was very different here 5 million years ago. It was warmer and wetter, so it was more subtropical.
Sure.
So there were it was forested with lots of different palm trees and yellowwoods and things like that. But in amongst those fossil pollens is some of the earliest evidence for fynbos in this region and grasses. So that's telling you that the warm, wet conditions were changing to the cooler, drier Mediterranean type conditions that we live with today.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating window into history. I just want to say, in case anybody's
Yeah.
coming into this conversation midway, that our guest via Zoom is Pippa Haarhof, manager of the West Coast Fossil Park, and talking to us about some of the absolutely fascinating research that continues around the fossil finds which have been found in this area. But Pippa, let's just shift the conversation a bit to the current visitor experience for somebody coming in as a layperson out of curiosity rather than scientific curiosity. I've already heard from several listeners who've been and really enjoyed it. Johan said he visited in 2019 and found it very interesting. Anne saying she always takes visitors to the fossil park. The displays are so informative. The guides who present the dig site are wonderfully knowledgeable and enthusiastic. And she says congratulations to you and your team. Alan also writing in to say, I've been to the fossil park. We were so surprised. It was the most interesting tour, very tastefully upgraded, and fascinating history of the Berg River estuary. So there we go. 3 listeners all giving you a thumbs up. Pippa, for the sake of those who've never been before, can you tell us a little bit about the visitor experience for somebody who comes as a curious tourist? What can they find?
Yes, which is the bulk of our visitors, by the way. Yeah. So we're open from Tuesday to Sunday, sorry. And the tours start at 9 o'clock. When we're really busy, otherwise 10 o'clock. And the tour takes you to the dig site where you can see it's primarily the remains of, there's at least 12 individuals. These Cevathers, these rather huge, they weighed up to 2,000 kilograms.
Sure.
They're not ancestral to the modern giraffe. They're relations. They're within the giraffe family. But they became totally extinct, the Cevathers. So the tour takes you to the dig site, and then you can do the museum, it's a beautifully exhibited. This has all been done with lottery funding, by the way.
Okay.
The new visitor center. We were very fortunate to get significant funding in 2010, and the new visitor center opened in 2018. So there's a shop, a very nice restaurant, which we've outsourced to eat. Fantastic food there. And then 3 levels of exhibition space, coordinated by Joanne Duggan. So that within the museum, you get a pretty good idea of what the fossils, the story that the fossils tell us. Now, I have to just remind us all now that without fossils, we would know nothing about the past life on this planet. They literally are the only key to helping us understand how life has changed through time on this planet. Yeah. And I think that's really undervalued because we're curious by nature. And luckily we are interested in where we've come from and so on. But if there were no fossils, we wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
Kids wouldn't know about dinosaurs, So there was a lot of thrill and curiosity would be missing.
Yeah.
So they're really important, and it's a remarkable thing that bones and teeth and pollens and such like can actually become fossilized.
Yeah. Pippa,
the visitor experience.
Yeah,
yes,
I was going to ask you about accessing that experience in terms of fees. I understand there's no entrance fee per se, but then once you're inside the facility, there are different options depending on what you want to do. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So we've just introduced a combined ticket, if you like, that enables you to do both the museum and the dig. Otherwise, it's broken down according to whether you're adults, a senior student, or a child.
Okay.
And we're told our fees are very reasonable. I don't have them right in front of me.
I've got your
new
website
ones.
open in front of me, and
Okay.
the museum access
Right.
50 rand, with the tour 100 rand, and it's a reduced rate for pensioners, for children, for students, etc. But I also noticed
Yeah.
reference to cycling and walking trail access. So if somebody wants to come and have a sort of more active physical experience, have you got dedicated cycling and walking routes mapped out?
Absolutely. Really nice. The longest one is 10 kilometers.
Okay.
The shortest is 3, and it takes you through. I mean, it's quite strange because it's an old mine,
Mm.
but and you'd think it would be pretty uninteresting and disappointing, but it's been superbly rehabilitated. That
Okay.
was one of the commitments that the mine ended up in the hands of BHP Billiton, and they had to address social, financial, and environmental responsibilities, which entailed rehabilitating the landscape. And Wooler Environmental Services did such a good job that the mine got an unqualified closure certificate after
Okay.
10 years of rehabilitation. So most people were coming into the visitor center. They don't realize it was an old mine because
Yeah.
it's green. It's very green.
Hmm.
So these trails go through the old mine landscape. There are some no-go areas where the potential fossil sites are, because the
Fair
entire
enough.
site, which is
Yeah.
700 hectares, is now a National Heritage Site. So,
Okay.
yeah. And then just for everybody's interest, the park run has just started.
Oh, that's
We had
lovely.
our first park run on Saturday, and we've had fantastic feedback on that. So from now on, every Saturday, 8 o'clock, the park run.
Definitely one
Um,
I'll have to add to my bucket list to come and do in the future. Pippa, thanks for tipping us
Good.
off about that. And thank you so much for doing
Yeah.
such a wonderful job, not just of explaining what there is to be visited, but why it matters so much. We do need to wrap
Yeah.
up here, but I just want to point listeners to your website, fossilpark.org.za, which has got all of the visitor information and lots of resources for teachers linked to the educational program as well. So if you've got a youngster in the house who's kicking their teeth and bored in the holidays, perhaps point them to that site to have a look at some of the worksheets to be explored, and more importantly, if you can, pop them in the car and take them for a visit to the West Coast Fossil Park. Pippa Haarhof, manager of that park, thank you so much for joining us today, and wishing you a very successful, busy festive season, and all the best for 2026 to you and the team.
Thank you so much, and the same to you and your team.
Thank you for joining us. A great pleasure to have Pippa Haarhof with us from the West Coast Fossil Park.